of their own accord, begging us earnestly for the favor of taking part in the relief of the saints. And this, in this, not as we expected, but they gave us first to the Lord and then by the will of God. Really, so I'm gonna start right there actually. And so one of the things I kind of want to hit out here and just kind of reflect on is this connection right now. Paul is looking at the Church of Macedonia, and one of the things that we see is again the end of the letter that he first sends. He talks about giving. In Macedonia, this region, specifically Philippi, they're well known for their giving. They're well known for helping ministry. It's just a weird little connection I've noticed. So he ends his first letter to them talking about giving. He's talking about giving, how we can help with the congregation. He's not able to return to them to something last time. He mentions that in the first letter, and then he brings up the Macedonian congregation here again. We have Berea, we have Thessalonica, but it's mainly Philippi. And the thing that you need to realize here too, he talks about them being in poverty. Philippi, the city, was actually a very wealthy city around this time. Philippi, Thessalonica, Berea, they were very wealthy. Philippi was actually given the name miniature Rome after the conquest. The fight with the Macedonian War, Rome, when they basically took it over. It was miniature Rome. They had a big amphitheater, a lot of things. But he talks about the poverty of the people. So one of the things that it makes me think of is how, even today's world, you look at a lot of wealthy cities. There's a lot of wealthy cities, but maybe the congregations that are within those cities, they aren't well off. And it makes you wonder sometimes, like, why is that? And it gives me like this weird view of how there's been that growth of the benevolent gospel. The more you give, the more you should prosper. But how that can sometimes be flawed. Mm-hmm. Because you can give everything, but still come out with nothing. It's about giving with your means. One of the things I want to kind of look at is also why they're to give in this period of time. He says they're giving for the saints' work, but remember, you also have to take into account that during this time, Jerusalem was going through a horrible famine. So it brings me to us looking at some examples of what it is to give, how to give. Because that's the important thing, is why you're giving. And again, looking at this growth of the prosperity gospel, people just give because they think they're going to get something back. And that's not the case. We give to help out our brothers. And we give because that money that we get for God's work goes into action for our brothers. Mm-hmm.
It kind of reminds me of like when we have like hurricanes come through, we give to like crisis disaster relief,
Mm-hmm.
That those are areas that get hit hard and they need financial help, so kind of like Jerusalem, was hit hard by a famine, they needed financial help. So something that we still do today that kind of reflects this model of giving in the Bible.
Yeah, and again, Jerusalem, but also the saints' work and the ministries, the outreach, so like Josh Dyke, and it goes to a lot. And so the examples I kind of wanted to look at on just how to give, and we'll see. Let's continue first. I want to get through verse 11 if we do that. I say this not as a command, but to prove by the earnest of others that your love also is genuine. For you know the grace of our Lord, Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sake he became poor, so that you by his poverty might be rich. And I kind of want to stop right here. What does it mean? What is he emphasizing about he was rich but he became poor? It's a simple thing. But what does he mean?
He was in heaven and then came man and came here to be ridiculed and persecuted and ultimately killed on the cross.
Yeah, and I want to bring that up because sometimes when we give, we don't take that into account as well. I'm not saying we in here, I'm saying just people who claim to be Christians will not take that into account. That he did something, he gave it all up. But we're not asked to give it all up, are we? We're asked to give what we can by our means. That's something that Paul reiterates, or he made clear in his first letter to Corinthians, give what you can. Don't overdo it. But he looking back at the Philippians, that congregation, though they were in a rich city, they were poor, they gave so much. And as we'll see, Paul is going to call the Corinthian congregation to do their duty as well.
Well, and it makes me think about, you hear people say, like, give till it hurts. I don't think that's just monetary. I mean,
Time.
you're right, your time is huge. I mean,
That's something you don't get back. You get that
right,
dollar back.
right, exactly. I feel like it's harder to sacrifice our time than it is our money. And, anytime that you're here helping with whatever event or, even just witnessing to someone in your everyday life, you're giving your time.
Yeah, and it's a good point. Time is obviously more valuable than money, so if you're giving that to the Lord, you're obviously trying to make it equated. It's going to be a bigger growth over time, hopefully. Keep that going on, verse 10. And in this matter I give my judgment. This benefits you, who a year ago started not only to do this work, but also to desire to do it. So now finish doing it as well. So your readiness in desiring it may be matched by your cleaning it out of what you have. And so I want to look at some examples. So that whole section is kind of like Paul talking about the giving part. So some examples I was thinking about that are good on why to give. Obviously, the first one's the widow and the 2 mites, correct? That's what everyone talks about, is the widow and the 2 mites. She only has 2 mites, she gives it to the temple, while the Pharisee, who probably has a lot of wealth, makes a big old show of just giving 10. Who gave more? Well, you're looking just at the numbers, so the Pharisee, but who gave more? So I mean that shows, the import, that's kind of like how the Philippian congregation is in this scenario, I want to say. That's what Paul's saying. They're giving everything. And as you see in verse 11, he's saying you were called, that you have to do your part now. And he kind of says this to a lot of the congregations, when he brags about the Philippian congregation. He's like, they're giving, what are you doing? The 2 mites, they're like the 2 mites in this scenario. They're giving their all. Y'all have the wealth. Are y'all doing your part as you agreed to do? Another example I want to look at, and then it's going to be a stretch, so give me a little bit of time, let me pull a weave of love, is Hannah giving up Samuel. Now, again, babies aren't money. We can't do that. Some people want to do that, babies are money. But they cost things, true. They're not free, but what I mean, in the example I look at with Hannah and Samuel is, she wanted a son. So she wanted a child. That was the main thing she wanted. And she asked him for it, and she got Samuel, but she promised Samuel to God. She said, give me this son, but I will give him, once he starts weaning, so still a baby, I'll give him to the temple, be a priest. She gave up the most precious thing to her. And she didn't know that she was going to have any more children after this either, because she was barren for so long. And she gave it up, not knowing what Samuel would be for God. She figured, okay, he'll be a priest. And then she figured that he'd be the last judge, that he would anoint 2 kings, that he would set the kingdom of Israel on the path of glory, which over time they fell and grew. But did she see that? No. She gave because she knew it was what a promise she made, but she trusted God. And so when we give this money, sometimes we get concerned, like, oh, well, what was it going for? What's it going to? And you have a right to an extent to be concerned. But at the same
I feel
time,
like our elders do a really good job of explaining that to us.
yeah.
You need, like,
Mm-hmm.
Mission Sunday, they have a really good breakdown. Purpose Sunday,
And
a broader view. Like,
and
it's,
once a year they'll have a meeting for us to come down
Yeah.
with the budget and everything. And
yeah.
that's good. Not all congregations do that.
Mhm.
And that's a concern. But what I want to look at with the Hannah and Samuel situation, sometimes even when congregations do that, people still don't trust.
Yeah.
Money is,
Yes,
and so you have to have trust. And trust in your eldership. You have to have trust in the church. And again, looking at an example with Philippi, we see in Polycarp's letter that later on that one of the elders and his wife was stealing from the giving.
Well, that's what I was gonna also say. Like,
Mhm.
it's not always just the breakdown Sundays that they give us. It's that we can see it every Sunday.
Mhm.
We're not one of those mega churches where the preachers, blinged out and things like that.
Well, and again,
Like, you can tell that our giving is going back to the community with our community outreach programs that we do. And when disasters do happen, we have the funding to be able to help with that, the mission work. Like, you can see it not just on those Sundays that they tell us what they're doing.
and that's the important thing. It's again, we trust our eldership, and so we should trust them. And this is something that Paul's going to reiterate, because as we see, he's not really collecting it, is he? He's not collecting. He's sending someone that they can trust to collect it, to bring it back to Jerusalem, to make sure it's going. He's making sure of all these things, that trustworthiness. And then the last one I want to look at, if someone can turn to Ruth chapter 2 and look at 10 through 12. So I want to look at Boaz. And this is an example of how we should give in a sense. Boaz sees Ruth. The only thing he knows of her is that she's a Moabite. And Israelites and Moabites don't have a good relationship right now. But if someone can get those 3 verses, 10 through 12.
What chapter is it?
Verse 2.
As this, she bowed down with her face to the ground. She asked him, "Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner?" Boaz replied, "I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, how you have left your father and mother in your homeland and come to live with people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge."
And so when I read this, it makes me think of the Christian action groups that Jeff brought. They are going to these areas and they are going to help these people. And it's their actions, as we see Boaz. He says, "I see what you're doing, and therefore I'm going to help you. And let the Lord repay you." And as we see later on, there's a little bit more context to it, but Ruth rose to like Boaz. And this starts the lineage of David. Now, Boaz's giving to Ruth is kind of like how we should be when we give. We see that you're in need. Now, we don't need to just blindly give, but we see that you're in need, and we see that you're trying your best. So we should help you. We can't just stand by idly. We're no better than the Pharisees if we do that. We need to do our part. Help you get on your feet. Also, one day maybe we'll be in the same situation, and that grace that we showed you will be reciprocated. That's how relationships are. And so those are the 3 examples I want to look at. Any thoughts before we finish up?
What you just said is kind of in the next verses.
Yeah.
It's all,
Yeah.
there you go.
I was going to do the same thing.
All right. So let's finish it up. I'm gonna kind of do my best to go through because we have like about 10 minutes left. For if the readiness is there, it is acceptable, according to what a person has, not according to what he does not have. For I do not mean that others should be eased and you burdened, but that as a matter of fairness, your abundance at the present time should apply their need, so that their abundance may supply you your need, that there may be fairness. As it is written, whoever gathered much had nothing left over, and whoever gathered little had no lack. But thanks be to God who put into the heart of Titus the same earnest care I have for you. And I kind of want to stop here because what we're going to see now is it kind of makes you think back again to chapter 13. Timothy is coming into town this time, not Titus. But Timothy's coming into town. And Paul's kind of saying to them, hey, I know you want Apollos. I know you like that guy. But I'm going to send Timothy. And you should give him a chance. It's kind of the same thing here. You know, Timothy came into town to give the report and went back to Paul to give them an update. He's hearing the update from Titus. And so I think after hearing how, reading that letter about how to treat Timothy in a sense, don't give someone else any polish, give Timothy a chance, they may have been more open to Titus as well, coming into town, interacting with him. For he not only accepted our appeal, but being himself very earnest, he is going to you of his own accord. And that's how we should be sometimes. Sometimes, we should help, we should give to the church, but sometimes if we see someone in stress or we're able to help out, we know them, it's okay to help out right there. And then ask the church to also help a little bit later. If you know someone in the church that needs some help, you can do it on your own accord. You don't have to just go to the elders immediately. You help them and then bring it up to the elders. So that's something I like here about Titus. He came on his own accord. He didn't wait to be told. With him, we are assuming the brother of our famous, who is famous among all of the churches for his preaching of the gospel. And not only that, but he has been appointed by the churches to travel with us as we carry out this act of grace that is being administered by us. The glory of the Lord himself, and to show our goodwill. Who is this famous brother?
Maybe it is Apollos.
It may be Apollos. We don't know.
Yeah.
It's never mentioned.
Yeah.
It could be Apollos. It could be Silas. We don't know what Silas did. Maybe Silas became a great preacher, but it's not really recorded. It could be, Luke. Luke wrote the gospel. Luke went and did accounts. So giving the accounts, he would be in a way preaching the gospel, confirming these things and talking to people who don't believe. We don't know. But the reason why I want to point out who this famous brother is Paul is trying to show the people that he's an apostle. He's trying to prove to them that he's an apostle. And sometimes association does help. So Paul is associating himself with this famous preacher. He's saying, look, we at the church, we're with this famous preacher. You know who he is. You know he treats it. Travels, does the gospel well. He's with us. Why? So in a way, it's kind of like he's indirectly asking, why are some of these people still questioning my apostleship? The people who we know who do well in preaching the word, they want to associate with. They see this. Why is it that some are still questioning? That's tough. Again, we see that in today's world. We see people associated with famous people all the time. Just because they're famous doesn't mean they're right about everything. But I think this is a different instance. This is Paul showing that this association kind of helps those questioning his apostleship, that he is an apostle indirectly. Any thoughts?
Yeah, my notes say that it could be Barnabas, because Barnabas was, Now that probably make more sense because Apollos doesn't seem to be a traveling companion of Paul. So,
One thing I saw was that I don't know if this is the internet. So one thing said it could be his brother. Like the translation of the brother could be Titus's brother, whoever that is.
And some think Luke is Titus' brother, which is why I brought Luke up. Some think Titus and Luke are related, which is why you don't see Luke making references to Titus that much. It's like, oh, he was there too. But we don't know who it is. But that association is Paul, in my opinion, trying to help those who are still doubting that he's an apostle. Like, look, there's this association. These people don't even have that. Don't even worry about it. And so let's finish it up. We take this course so that no one should blame us about the generous gift that is being administered by us. For we aim at what is honorable, not only in the Lord's sight, but also in the sight of man. And with them, we are sending our brother whom we have often tested and found earnest in many matters, but who is now more earnest than ever because of his great confidence in you. I'm going to stop there. Is this the same brother that he mentioned earlier, or is this a different brother?
It sounds like it's the same one, but
Some think it's a different brother, and some think it's the same one. And this is why I think some people may think this is Luke, because Luke has been tested a lot through going through the scripture. Now, again, I'm not saying it's Luke. It could be Apollos, because Apollos was also tested. But I think my thought would be it might be Luke at this period, because Luke had to go through when he was writing the gospel. He had to go through and verify a lot. He had to go test a lot of thoughts, confirmations about the gospel. And while gathering that information, he might have a lot of knowledge of just more so than someone who doesn't have the spirit, that gift. We'll finish it up. As for Titus, he is my partner, and a fellow worker for your benefit. And as for our brothers, they are messengers of the church, the glory of Christ. So give proof before the church of your love and of our boasting about you to these men. And so I think it's very interesting that he's emphasizing Titus is my partner. Remember, he had a partner before. We mentioned Barnabas, but then also Mark was his partner for a while, and they kind of had a tiff. They had a disagreement. Timothy has been his partner. Titus is his partner. I think it's kind of interesting that Paul is making this emphasis because, one, he's a Gentile before all his partners have been Jews. And so he's kind of starting this, showing this trust to the Gentiles, giving them more work to do. And when we're reading these letters, part of the problem is that what we would call the Judaizers, I don't like the name, that's the best way to describe them, the Judaizers still want to have control over how it's preached, how the gospel is preached. And they're not really trusting the Gentiles, the new brothers to come in. What I kind of see in my thought is Paul, when he's saying I'm partnered with Titus, he's saying, trust him. I trust him. This brother, the Spanish brother, would trust him. Trust him. When we have this trust, you should at least have this trust as well. It's not like a blind trust, but don't just pass on him like some people do. Give him the chance. And again, when you're in a congregation for so long and you get a new preacher, you kind of get these clips and they just go, oh, I don't like the way he teaches. I don't like the way he does X or Y. And that's to form riffs. Well, what? And this isn't Titus going to preach, he's going to help with the collection of things. But sometimes those little thoughts, you don't think they're bad, but they can be seeds that are, if they're planted, can grow to be bad fruits. And it can be things that over time could cause a congregation, not a major split, but a minor split, but one split turns to another split, into another. A tree has multiple branches, right? An apple tree, first branch comes, another. And so he's saying, give this person a chance. Now, what Titus is doing is wrong, obviously. As Paul said before in his first letter, keep on the congregation, like you did your other brother. But he's saying right now, give Titus the benefit. Give this new person coming in the benefit. Trust him. Any thoughts?
back to verses, I think like really 12 through like 14, where it talks about the purpose of giving is not to give necessarily beyond what you have. And it's not to give to the point where you've created affliction for yourself, like it says in verse 13, and to the point where the purpose is a mutual meeting of needs.
Yeah.
And so I like the illustration or the idea of like, if you have a brother in need and you're like, oh man, like I'm supposed to give, I give everything I have to take care of your need. well, what have I done?
You hurt yourself.
Yeah, you've created another need. You haven't really solved the problem. You just shifted the problem to someone else.
And this is why
Yeah,
Paul,
right.
you know, you see Paul, he basically says, you were called a year ago, and now you need a help. We're
Right.
putting it all on, you know, he says Macedonia, but in reality, we know it's the Philippian congregation.
Right.
And the kind of giving you're talking about, Jesus said that's wrong.
Mhm.
Like, you give so much, you can't even take care of your family.
Yeah, right.
And you're like, I'm giving it to God, so
And,
I'm not taking care of my family.
Right.
and in a way, that's what's happening to the Philippians. Now, they're not doing it intentionally, but they're the only congregation that we know at this time that's giving. That's why I like to use the two mics. She gave everything. The Philippians are giving everything, but now their congregation is kind of most likely being held back, even though they live in a rich city. A lot of the people who are rich are retired Roman generals. You know, I mean, if you look at the history, I'm not going to go super deep into it, but it's called the miniature Rome. And what Octavian and Antony did, and the emperors afterwards did, was they sectioned off pieces of land. They said, this is your farmland, this is your generation's farmland, we have other lands that we'll give to future soldiers. And they also had mines with valuable ore to make weaponry. They were able to be a very industrial city like Rome, why one reason was called the miniature Rome. But not all the wealthy people were Christians. And so most likely those who were Christians were, like as Jesus interacted with, the suffering, the poor. And they're giving everything like the woman with the 2 mites. But we have brothers in Corinth and Ephesus who probably are doing well off, who are not doing their part. And so like what you're saying, Jeff, Philippi's in this conundrum where they're giving everything and they're not probably helping themselves.
Yeah.
And what Paul is saying, especially the Corinthians, is we all know you haven't done it.
Right.
You have been asked.
Right.
Help yourself out. You gotta, that's part of being Christian. And again, that's why I kind of find that fascinating, because 13 and 8 right here kind of go in the same hands, you know. 13, Paul is basically saying, give, you know, help your brother out. And now, here in the second letter, chapter 8, he's kind of re-emphasized, like, hey, remember when I said this? You should do it because Macedonia is also needing your help. Jerusalem.
Yeah, and back to 13, you know, notice how it says it's not for the ease of others and for your affliction, you know.
Mhm.
Like church giving or you, yeah, especially, and this is really what talking about church giving. Church giving is not so that we can, you know, buy people who ask, you know, for like a big screen TV or for like really nice extra stuff. Yeah. It's not, it's to actually meet needs, you know, that's what the giving is designed to do. And, you know, unfortunately, we do live in a country where what a need is sometimes is not, you know, what.
One and then you get conflicted.
Right. One needs are sometimes conflated to be the one and the same thing. And, you know, the Bible says the church uses funds to meet needs, not necessarily to give extra things to people. So.
And that's one of the reasons why I think we see Titus being used as an example. He came on his own accord. He wanted help. Sometimes, you know, we want to give to the church and we want to let the church handle it. But if we see a brother who's in need directly, that's why I'll say you don't have to go to the elders to help. You see a brother who's in need, you can help them. But then you can, you know, talk to them about it. Then if you need to, go to the eldership. See if they can help you. We have a food pantry, we have all these needs. But sometimes our pride prevents us from asking for help. And sometimes it takes someone eager like a Titus to go on their own accord when they see a brother and need to go, hey, look, let me help you. And so looking at the two congregations, Paul's kind of like speaking up for Philippians, saying, look, they're doing all they can. But you've got to kind of help out yourself. You, a year ago, promised this. And it's been a year. And this leads into what chapter 9 is going to be. I don't know who's got chapter 9. So hopefully I don't ruin your whole class, but it's basically your name. He's going to be calling them out on their reputation. He's going to say, you promised this and you haven't. It's been a year. What is the worth of your name? Don't become an unreliable congregation. And we see so many congregations kind of going that way. So there's some step up beyond, or we do see some step back, focus more internally, and sometimes they need to, but sometimes they definitely just don't want help, they want to participate, they don't want to ruffle. Any thoughts before we close class?
One thing I was gonna say was it instantly reminded me of Acts 2:44 and 45 when many people come to Christ and people are selling and sharing,
Mm-hmm.
giving to their needs. So it instantly reminded me of that when we were talking about
That's a great,
living according to the needs, not what they want. People are selling things that they didn't need.
it's a great example because there's all those people understand, it's great because they travel. And so they only spent enough for their travel.
Yeah.
And so now they're like, we're Christians, yay, and then they're like, what do we do now? Where do I stay? What do I do? And so people are like, Paul Peter's like, hey, Peter and the apostles there, the disciples are like, hey, come on. They're our brothers. We should not just sit here and twiddle our thumbs and be like, have a great day. Participate, help them out. That's a good one. I like that. Any others? Any other thoughts? Anything you want to say?
Okay. Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity we have to gather together the first day of the week to open the word that was left for us and carefully handed down the generations that we could learn and we could seek application in our lives. Just help us to diligently seek to serve you through our studies and also through our actions and the love that we show our neighbor and the love that we show our fellow member in the church.
Amen. Who's got chapter 9? Brian.
No one spoke up. I hope somebody has